I'm back on telegraph poles again, and I'm trying to build a specific scene. This video is about how to think about and build an iconic scene for your model railway. And that's really what I'm into. I want my trains to run through scenes that are ultimately as cool as I can make them. As my regular viewers probably know, this is one of my favorite views on the Farland layout. This long straightaway with trees down both sides and the buildings in the foreground and the old abandoned signal cabin. And I've been thinking that I would really like to enhance it with some telegraph poles. See if I can zoom in here. The track rubbers indicate where I want to put them. So I want one there. And there's one further on down. I'm going to switch to manual focus here. One down there by the cantilevered signal. And then one way down there in the distance. One of those very lonely looking single cross tree, 2 insulator telegraph poles in the distance. So that's what I'm working on. I want to create this scene of the telegraph poles marching away, and as the wires drop off, that last one down there by the cantilevered signal, that'll only have 3 cross trees in it. So I'm going to drop cross trees as they march down. That's what I'm going for anyway. How I'm making these, if you want to try to do this, there's the list of material needed, and that's all polystyrene, evergreen plastics. I guess they go by evergreen scale models. I have a pretty extensive library of plastic shapes at this point. I have a little drawing on my block of wood here, my piece of plywood. This is the extent. Let me lay one down here so you can see. This line is the extent of the cross tree. This represents the pole. And this is this tick and this tick and this tick and this tick are insulator spacings. So if I center punch those, makes it a lot easier to drill in the right place. It spins the drill when you move it up and down. Making it really handy. Here, I'm going to move you over. It's a little easier for me to do this with the camera not right in the way. So I drill out all 4 of the cross beam, cross bar, cross tree, whatever it is. Next, I insert what represents the bolt. I have to do this with my fingers. Now that will lock them. Next thing I need to do is I need to cut off. These are a little bit too long, so they need to be cut off. Right now they will protrude beyond the insulator. Next thing is put the insulator on. Now I need to get the spacing. I need to get the spacing right. So I'm going to tease these apart, tease these away from the bar just a little bit. They're just a little bit sticky from that little bit of glue I put on them, which is a good thing. It keeps them from flying off here while I get the gap. Now, as you know, we've worked on this before. We added a micro back seam along the left side over there, down at the end. I was going to lay cable trunking all the way down it, and I thought, well, yeah, I could do that, but then it might be more interesting if I did a series of telegraph poles. After all, they're visually more interesting than cable trunking is interesting if you're riding on the train and you're looking at it snake along and zigging and zagging along beside the train, as long as the train's not going too fast. But I've seen pictures of telegraph poles and they look so awesome that I decided the best thing I could do here was figure out how to incorporate those in this scene and make them as interesting as possible. When you're thinking about adding telegraph poles, you should think about how many wires it takes to do whatever it is you're doing. The more things that are going to be connected, the more wires you need. And in this scene, as we go down this way, we have fewer and fewer wires needed. At least that's the theory I'm going to operate on. When we get to the very end down there, at the far end, what I want to see is one single pole with one cross tree and two insulators on it, tall, a stalk sticking up at the far end down there. Because I've seen those in pictures and it just looks so interesting. Here's this really tall pole with a pair of insulators on it. You usually can't see the wires if the wires are still there. A lot of photographs of telegraph poles were taken when the wires were gone because, people realize, hey, these are going away. And they're kind of an iconic item, an interesting item, artifact of the railways, and we need photographs. In fact, there are whole websites devoted to photographs of telegraph poles if you go out there and look for them. I've certainly found them, and I've spent a few hours studying them, along with other technical articles about telegraph poles. I've got 3 sheets of specifications that I developed to help me build telegraph poles, and that are to scale and 00 scale, 1:76. Now, the information could be adapted to HO scale or O scale, whatever, but you'd have to recalculate for some of those. I'm modeling in this instance in 176 or 00 gauge, 00 scale, depending on how you want to say it. And so I was primarily interested in British telegraph poles and how they were used and where they were used and what they looked like and their relative scale dimensions. So that's what these pages reflect, and I'll put those at the end of the video, and you can do a screenshot if you're interested. If you want to try to build something like this, if you want to try your hand at making some telegraph poles, British BR telegraph poles. So anyway, back to planning this iconic, I call it iconic, to me it is. So I want to see a progression of poles, telegraph poles, with reduced numbers of cross arms going down, with the final one near where that cantilevered signal is. The wires, the theory then would be that those wires actually are connected to that cantilevered signal. And then on beyond it, one stalk, one pole, very tall, with a single cross tree and 2 insulators on it that will silhouette against the wall down there. That's what I'm going for. And you see I've got some track rubbers laying out there. Those are just markers so that I can remember when I planned where I wanted these to be, where they're going. Roughly every 24 inches is about right. Every 2 feet is about right for the scale and placement of telegraph poles. They would have been about that distance apart in scale, and it looks about right. Now, all the other work I've done with the telegraph poles on the layout have been mostly experiments, and I'm leaving those experiments up because I like to look at them. I did put a lot of work into those, and so they're not going away. But these that are going here are going to be the most accurate ones I can possibly make, based on the limitations of the materials and my ability. That's what this video is about, building an iconic scene.